that, right? So we started with this, like the 3 questions, stating what we want our students to be able to do at the end of the program, and designing learning teaching processes to facilitate students to do what they are expected to do. And I also told that yes, assessing the student whether they are able to do what they are expected to do is also emphasized in outcome-based education. That time I told, yes, we need to document this, what we state, and that must be reflected in our design and development of curriculum. So we need to design and develop outcome-based curriculum. Next is, I told here that we need to make it active. And this activation is nothing but the curriculum implementation. So whatever curriculum we have prepared, we need to implement it properly, effectively, because of these 2 questions, right? This diagram also we discussed. Yes, the steps to do the curriculum design, and say we have done the curriculum. We have done the curriculum, which is our outcome-based education. Now, always we know that for any institute, for any program, the educational objective lead to develop our students a good human being. That is the ultimate thing. We want our students to establish themselves, but not in other way. They should also be a good citizen of the country, very good human being. That is our ultimate aim. Okay. And that's why we have 3 objectives: affective domain, psychomotor domain, and cognitive. We never put ourselves only within cognitive. The psychomotor skill is needed, and overall, this is very, very important. And if you analyze our curriculum, existing curriculum, you will be observing that yes, this domain is never introduced in the curriculum itself. Nowhere it is documented that what are the affective domain objectives or outcomes, and where to develop, how to develop that, right? Now, this is very, very needed if we ultimately want that, yes, we want our students to establish them as good human beings. Hence, there can be 3 different domain learning outcomes of student. So when we prepare outcomes, we have to remember, yes, I'm doing it like software engineering course, I'm writing the course outcome. There I'll be writing some outcome which is involving this affective domain. Like when they are solving software related problems or something, they are developing some software that should benefit humanity. So that kind of way, we have to integrate the affective domain inside either cognitive or psychomotor, but we cannot leave the affective domain, which is actually missing in our existing curriculum. So outcome-based education has got 3 components, very essential components. Step 1 is design and develop outcome-based curriculum. Step 2, promote outcome-based learning teaching. Now you can see I have not written teaching learning. I have written learning teaching. Sorry, that G is missing from here. Sorry. Okay, so here should be one G. So I have written learning teaching because outcome-based education always asks for learner-centric education. So learning is needed. That's why we are teaching. So it is not that we are teaching, that's why they are learning. It's for we want them to learn, and that's why we are teaching. So whatever thing we need to do, we will be doing because we want our student to learn and apply and do something, right? So our aim is that. So to emphasis on that, I used to write learning teaching, not teaching learning. Okay, because it is learner-centric education. And number 3 step is ensure outcome-based assessment. Yes. So outcome-based assessment to be done. We should not test our students on that outcome which we have not listed. So first, let them know what are the expectation from them, and then teach them with that expectation, and then assess them whether your expectations are already achieved, successful or not. There is some gap, right? And this part you can consider as outcome-based curriculum implementation. So design develop is done here, and this is the part for implementation. So we must know how to implement the curriculum. And this implementation is not only limited to your teaching, but teaching, learning, as well as assessment. Depends on all these 3. Now you can see curriculum, I told it has to be documented. So it's a document. Either you keep it in soft copy or in hard copy, but that is documented. Documented and shareable. Shareable among the stakeholders, right? So we have our curriculum, which is an open document. But what is there in the curriculum? We have documented the curriculum in the first step. We have developed the content according to the learning outcomes. More, not the CO, but also to the ILO level. That is very, very small outcomes we have considered, and the referenced means topics, subtopics, as well as detailed content we have developed. And that is documented. We call it as a detailed curriculum of outcome-based education. But this content, what? It's nothing but information. It's keeping information that yes, these are the things the student should study. This is why they should study. This is how the teacher should teach. This is how the teacher should assess. And these are the places where the teacher should take their students, sometimes in the laboratory, sometimes in the open book thing, that is in library or some industry visit or something. But all of them are written as information. What we need to do? We need to see that I told enabling outcomes to be converted or to be transformed into exit outcome. So we need this exit outcome, right? And yes, I told that because of the enabling outcome, which is a content of the curriculum, has to be transformed into exit. How then? Who will be doing that? Certainly, the responsibility is ours. That is the teachers. Teachers need to do that. So what we will be doing? This information information must be processed. So this processing is done by us. Processing done by the teachers, but with the students. Okay. And when we talk about the student-centric thing, then processing will also be based on student-centric processing, right? And after processing, this information becomes knowledge. So once teacher and student, they process this information through different way, in the classroom, outside the classroom, in the laboratory, in the library, or in the industry for training, whatever may be the place and method, but processing is done. And once it is processed, it becomes knowledge. And this knowledge, when students are going to apply it, then only exit outcomes will be visible. So you can see what is actually done in the implementation stage. Once it is developed, it is like this. And up to this, you can very well get. This information, if I give directly to the student, not possible. Not possible to get this exit outcome, because again, this is our responsibility to ensure that. And since I have to ensure, I have to be there in this processing section. And I have to test that, yes, this information, whether it becomes knowledge. And I have to see that, observe that, yes, this knowledge is applied and they are performing. They are showing me their exit outcomes, right? So this processing to be done through observation, and the term we use is called experiencing learning. One is you are sitting and you are not experiencing the thing. You are listening to, but you are not a part of the process. You are sitting somewhere and listening to, but you are not involved in the process. And that's why you are not experiencing the thing. You are only listening, you are viewing, but you are not a part of the process, right? This is one way. Another thing is, no, the teacher is giving them a scope to observe the thing and then involve themselves in the learning process so that they can experience how they are learning it. So outcome-based education demands this type of teaching or learning teaching, right? Where students will be involving in the process of learning, right? Now the thing is, this is a question to every teacher, that are you sure that your student know how to observe? When you are giving them something to see, or something is happening in front of them, you are demonstrating something, do they know how to observe it, right? Because when we observe something, we observe and then we try to match it with whatever prior knowledge we have with that. And then after matching, we give, yes, this seems to be this. We give our opinion. So whatever you are giving them to observe, the process is they must match it with their prior knowledge. So scope to be given before telling them what you are showing them, the scope to be given to them, that they should get a chance to observe, match, and then reflect back to you. So any gap you will be giving hints, or if it is correct, then very well. So this process has to be there. But sometimes what happens, in the class we deliver the thing. Delivery is something else. Delivery means I'm transferring my thing to you without giving you a scope to understand that thing. Sometimes what we do, we give them the thing and we told, okay, go home and read and study and then solve problem. So I'm not very sure what is happening there. So that indicates that involvement in the process of learning is not actually done, and that's why the observation power or ability to observe is not developed, because once they have the ability to develop, then only on any reality situation they will be able to take a decision and do accordingly. We want them to do that in future. Then here they must practice it. So we need to give them some scope for practicing it also. So the role of a teacher in 21st century, because we are teaching 21st century learners, is to provide opportunity to learner to learn. They must learn how to observe and guide them how to acquire and process information, to construct, see new knowledge. So means it is not delivery of knowledge, but helping them, supporting them, or facilitating them to develop or to construct new knowledge by themselves based on their prior knowledge. Okay, so you can see that reflection you are getting how to teach. Teaching is that you are not delivering the information, not passing the information from you to him or her, but you are helping or facilitating them to construct the new knowledge based on the already learned knowledge, right? So the role of a teacher is, you can say, this is also changed in outcome-based education. And you can see teach and learn. These are very close thing. You can see here, okay, that indicates that whatever you are teaching, they must learn it. Okay, it's a true reflection. There should not be any time gap or any material gap. Whatever you are teaching, you must teach with the intention that yes, your student will be able to do as guided by you or as given by the knowledge provided to them according to that. Now, there are several teaching activities that we do. No, there are several activities of a teacher. If I list it, I'll be getting a long list, and you know this list. Classroom lecturing, conducting laboratory, use of various instructional materials which we have to prepare, use of tools, strategies for providing learning opportunities. I have to think what I should do today, whether I'll be using PPT or I'll take a model to show them, or I'll show them a video kind of thing, because I want to give them that effective teaching. That's why. Then, yes, in the class, maybe we are 1 hour, we are in contact, but they should get learning is like that. When they want, they should get it. Time is their wish, right? That's why there should be another supporting thing, which is this ICT based teaching. So use of smart classroom, providing scope for self-learning through MOOCs and NPTEL, those must be there. So whenever I'm teaching a subject, I must tell them that resources also, that yes, for reference, you can go to this website or that website, that guideline to be given to them, right? Then again, they should go, as you said, beyond curriculum, or I should say beyond my ability as a teacher. So I should give them a chance to talk to others also. So that's why it's needed that organizing workshop, in our guest lecture or special sessions may be arranged for them. Experts, industry experts can be called, and okay, 1 hour, and this can be very well nowadays done by this online courses also. Providing scope for industrial visit, training, internship. So when you are planning to have your own curriculum, you can always keep all those things inside the planned one. Teaching activities can be arranging classroom seminar, quiz, group discussion in any topic, whether it is technical or non-technical, whatever may be. We can always go for some kind of seminar. Do not use the whole 1 hour class, but can be 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Some small outcomes you can decide, okay, my ILOs are 10 ILOs. Out of that, these 2, 3, I'll be doing by quiz. Okay. These 2, it's very easy, can be available in the book. So give them a task, let them present it like a small talk or seminar kind of thing for 15 minutes, not by everyone, but selected team-wise. There can be topics given to them, means the topic of concept also. Let them have a discussion, group discussion can be there. Minutes, 15 minutes, but not more than that, not a complete class hours. So in between, we can plan these things, and we will be planning based on the ILOs, because some ILOs are very, very conceptual, and there I have to talk. That's as a teacher. Some are practice oriented, so I have to give them tasks. But some are either need means collaboration, discussion, or very simple factual. So there I can arrange this kind of activities. Giving take-home task and assignment, as I told, some are to be practiced. So I have to find out what are the ILO, where I need to give them task, home task, or assignments. Then assignment can be group assignment, can single assignment, whatever. This is according to you, but we find out. And then assigning project. And project, I'm not talking like that is end semester project. The project can be small project, can anytime be given to them. Make group, give them small project, so that they are habituated to do this kind of work from whenever they will be entering into the department concept, that is after their first year, right? So this can be done. Providing scope for soft skill development, I think this is taken care by the institute itself, or if not by institute, the department can arrange that. Scope for non-credit mandatory courses in the curriculum, that is another thing which is now path has been shown by AICT. There are several courses which are like mandatory courses, even for the master's course also. So if you are autonomous, then also you can keep that mandatory non-credit courses, right? And then publishing departmental magazine, newsletter, wall magazine, that is also essential for learning. Learning new things, communicating the thing, how to write it in the newsletter or magazine, how to write a text in a representation of that, because this may not be done through always in your lecture class, but keep a scope, and this is included in the teaching activity. It is not something away of or different than this teaching activity. These are all with the aim that you want your students, after passing out, they should be a very good human being. They should establish themselves. So these are there. Implementing student feedback analysis mechanism for enhancement of student learning. So this is very important, and I know that you all are doing. But the thing is, when you are taking the feedback, for course feedback, do not take it at the end of the course. Try to take it at least thrice, if not 4 times, because there must be some scope for improvement. I am doing some way of teaching. I am doing it very well, but students are not comfortable and they are not sharing with me. So then if I take feedback in between, okay, then what will happen? I will be getting that information and can work on that issue, right? But if I get it at the end of the course, then it is of no use for that particular batch, right? So that's why this feedback, intermittent feedback must be given, and that is the responsibility activity of the teacher. And the last one I'll be writing here, that act as student mentor supporting weak students. So this you need to identify first whom to provide support, then provide support, right? So these are all teaching activities. Our activity is not limited within classroom. If you go through the outcome-based education principles, you will be very well getting, I have not discussed that, you will be getting that information that as a teacher, our role is already changed. We have to act as facilitator, and the working zone of a facilitator is not limited within the classroom. It is now extended like this. Okay. Now, this is another important thing which I like to share with respect to implementation of outcome-based curriculum. You can see this triangle. I don't know whether you have seen it previously or not. You must have. Now, this is called Dell's cone. Edgar Dell, he has given this concept. And you can see regarding knowledge, we are getting some information. Knowledge means our cognitive part of the outcome. Now you can see that the lowest level, define, describe, list, explain, these are coming at this level. Okay. Then demonstrate, apply, practice are coming here. And then analyze, justify, create, evaluate, these are coming here. Now what it means? We can go here. Now when we are teaching, if we are giving them a scope to read, 10% of that they can remember just through reading. And then it is possible only doing these things. Okay. 20% of that, when we teach, we give lecture, 20% of that, what they have heard, they can remember and do. So then also the learning is passive and they will be able to do limited thing. Now, when we show them some model or something, okay, then when we demonstrate something with picture or maybe computer, something software, etc., 30% of what they have seen they can remember and apply. So they will be able to demonstrate, they will be able to apply, okay, and they can practice also. Now, when we are giving them a scope for, they can see as well as hear both. And then up to this, 50% of that, they will be able to apply or remember. And up to this, we call this is passive learning. Passive learning. So their learning is passive. That's why their outcome will be limited. And outcome limited to apply, practice, demonstrate. But may not be able to analyze or create a new thing with this much of scope for learning. But when you are giving them a chance that what they say and write, so you are then giving them a scope that, okay, you say, you talk, you write by yourself. Or when you are giving them a scope to, no, not saying or writing, but you do it, show me that. So this part is called active learning. They are actively involved in the learning process. And then only they can go for higher order thinking, that is analyzing the matter, justifying with giving reason, or they can create or evaluate. Evaluate means take a decision. They will be able to take a decision also. So you can see, based on our process, these learning activities are directly connected to our teaching process. And then you are very sure that if I go up to this level, then also learning is passive, and I am not definite whether my students will be having higher order thinking skills as per Bloom or not, which is analyze, evaluate, and create. These three levels. I am not definite whether that will be among my student or not. So whenever, as a teacher, for implementing the curriculum, we are going for deciding the strategy of teaching or methods and techniques for teaching, we must be very, very cautious. Why? Because of this Elka-Dell's phone, which is giving me this information. Yes, you can see that reading, hearing, looking at picture, 30% retention. Then what I am doing, they will not remember at all. Only 30% will be able. Watching a movie, looking at an exhibit, watching a demonstration, then it is 50% retention rate. So this is also very limited. But when I am going above this, that is, I'm allowing my student to participate in a discussion or giving a talk or doing a giving a talk, these two are making them able to retain 70%. But when I am going to give them opportunity to do a dramatic presentation, which is very, very much of involving themselves in the process, or experiencing in simulated environment. That means I'm creating an environment where similar to the real life, they are experiencing the thing, right? Or I'm giving them a scope, go to the real situation and do the work there only. So then my retention rate is improved, and that is 90%. So now you can very well tell me that yes, then you got your answer, that what are the way you can go for implementing outcome-based education, not by giving a lecture, no doubt at all, okay, or not giving them a kind of note that you read and answer from that, okay. Even sometimes we need to go beyond demonstration also. What we need to give them a scope for working or experiencing for learning, right? Involving them. So then this part is the passive learning, I told, but this part we called active learning. From this participate in a discussion to all are, please note that it will not give you a scope for deeper learning. That's why whenever you plan for class for emptying the curriculum, then it is a course of mathematics, it is a course of humanities, or it is a course of electrical engineering or civil engineering, you have to think that my course to be designed in such a way that I should give them a scope for participation, a scope for giving seminar, not as a topic of seminar, but in my own course, scope will be given, okay? Or together some like mini project, etc., or taking them to see the real situation. If possible, give them a scope to stay there and work for some time, someday. So these are the things I need to include in the new curriculum, that is outcome-based curriculum, and keep a note on the curriculum so that whenever whoever will be teaching, he should get this indication that these methods are not possible for this outcome-based curriculum, right? And yes, it needs planning. So what kind of activities to be there in active learning? Because I told, yes, my this education, outcome-based education, go for active learning, right? So you can see for active learning, it is like, yes, instructional activities involving learner in doing things and thinking about what they are learning, right? So it is not only doing, continuously thinking, and this continuously thinking is actually making them involved in the process. So two assumptions are there when you plan your class. Learning is by nature an active process. So remember, when they are not involved means they are not at all learning. They can say, they can sit in that way. It seems they are learning, but they are not learning because learning itself is an active process. And another point we need to remember that yes, different people learn in different ways. They have their preferred learning style. That's why when we plan, we have to think of that. Yes, not only one kind of planning will be there. Some students are very, very verbal. They listen and they can remember. Okay. Some are visual. They, if you present it very nicely, they can remember every line, every sentence of that presentation, provided the presentation they liked it, because they are visual learners, right? So when I, as a teacher, I'll be planning, I'll be keeping something for the verbal one and something for the visual one also. So my presentation will be considering both the things, right? So this way, when we plan, we have to remember that who are there in my class, what is their learning style, and since these are the different types, extremely this end or extremely that end can also be there. Some persons are like that. If you go on talking in the class, they will close their ears. They don't want to listen to what some people are talking. They only like to see, and by observation they learn, right? And another point a teacher must remember, for active learning, this is very much needed, because it is seen that most of us learn best when we are actively involved in the learning process. So our 1C, which I told, collaboration, is very, very essential. So collaboration and communication, these two we need to strongly in our class so that active learning situation can be. Then the thinking, so give them some task, not all, some task which will require critical thinking, and give them a scope or thinking by themselves, that is innovative thinking or out of the box thinking. Out in one class, you can give only one question, one activity, which is making them like think in a different way. Okay, so this are known thing, only it requires your implementation. Effective learning occurs when what is already known is accessed. New learning builds on what is already known. because that mapping is very, very essential. That yes, I know this much, then on that I am starting learning. And the third point, remember that the lecturer or teacher or instructor must engage the learner. Engage the learner is not meaning only physical engagement, but their minds to be engaged. That's why they must think about what they are doing. So minds will be on. This is why, because learning occurs not by recording information, but by interpreting it. Please remember. So it is not that you give information, they record it, but give them a scope to think on that and interpret that, right? So it is the time to define the active learning, because we now know, we have the idea of what is active learning. Active learning, students are involved. Active learning, their minds are on. Active learning, they are going to construct their new knowledge. And active learning means teacher is not talking, but teacher and student both sitting together trying to create new knowledge, right? So you can see active learning is a dash where students dash in classroom activities, that again gap is there, critical engagement with gap is there, material. Can anybody help me? Can anybody help me to fill up? Anybody? Any of the gap? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 numbers are there. You can just give me hints that this number, this word. You? It's the definition according to what we discussed. First gap is very easy, because learning is always it's for processing, no? So it should be a kind of process. So it is a teaching approach. Yes, it is a process where actually it is an approach. Okay. So teaching approach, you are creating the process by which then the students, very well it is known, it will be engaged. Yes, participate, engage, participate. Very right, very right. So the other word I have used is involve. The same meaning, you can use engaged also. Okay. But the term English word, little difference, engaged and involved. Involved is Taurus, means it is close to heart. That's why they have the desire to do something. That's what. And then activities that promote critical engagement. But the last point is very, very essential. Yes, it is promotes. Thank you. But the last point is very, very essential. We can do all these. I can show them a film, very interesting film in the classroom. They will be engaged. Okay. They will be engaged. They will be discussing everything. But we can't do it, because this engagement is truly with material. So what is your topic of the day or the course which you are teaching? This should be with respect to that. So no storytelling class, nothing is there. It's about the course. You have to design this type of thing. That's why this is specifically referred as a teaching approach, right? So this is the definition. Learners involvement tool, you can see these are the tools which you use. You must have, you are using also. So many tools are there. Quiz, this is TPS, is think, pair, share, turn and talk, because students, they love to talk in the classroom. Okay, so let them give that chance. Talk, but talk on a issue which I am discussing, right? Either you talk with the person who is sitting next to you, or if you like, you can talk to the back person also, turn and talk. But you have to come out with some thinking, some solution which involved your involvement. Thinking is needed. Some kind of games, role playing, brainstorming, giving some issue, questioning skill. Yes, teacher, we must be very good in framing the questions. Questions to be framed in such a way that you can test their learning also, right? So questioning is another way of involving. Group problem solving, group discussion are common. Then some collaborative learning, some cooperative learning, as well as concept mapping. Concept mapping for assessment can be done, concept mapping for understanding whether their concept is clear or not, or concept mapping can be used to know their prior learning also. You are going to teach something, you can ask them to do this concept mapping. You will be getting, yes, now at the present situation, they know this much. So it is possible by the teacher to understand what more to be given, right? So these are all the tools which we need to utilize. Learners should be engaged in more activities than just listening, like involved in dialogue, debates, writing, problem solving, and other higher order thinking activities. But they must be involved. Okay. So teaching under OB, yes, this is again a transformation because it needs transformation of a passive classroom to an active classroom. So your classroom should not be a passive one where only one-sided traffic is there. The teacher is talking, teacher is the master, teacher is always the master controller of the class, but it is that you will be observing their involvement, and wherever needed you are going to give the input. And for that, what we need to do? Decide learning outcomes. Okay. Plan your instruction, that is classroom activities. Communicate effectively with the students or even others also. Manage learning teaching time. So all these, when you will be doing, you can see that you have to be a master of control of time, because time is an essential component. You cannot take others' time. You have to finish within your time only. That's why this is the another point we as a teacher must have that ability to do, managing time, right? So that's all for first part of implementation, that is teaching. Okay, because I told it has got two components. One is designing learning teaching and then assessing the student. So I think we have a break here or not. I think we have a 15-minute break. So if you have any question, you can ask, and we'll have a break. After the break, I'll be discussing about the outcome-based assessment. And this is not the detail I am discussing. This is only the overview I am giving. Okay, because within this time, it's not possible to go for the details, but I am giving you an overview of what we need to do. Okay, so any question you can ask. Yes, Dr. Manoj, if you are here. Hello. Yes, if any question there.
Participants, if you have any question, please unmute your mic and ask.
Hello,
Yes.
Professor Gangurde from Nasik.
Okay.
So, what
Yes,
is
well,
what from Maharashtra? Format
yeah, I'll come, sir. I'll come. In my last session
different
is on
kinds of formative assessments we can.
Yes, yes, I'll come because after break I have kept only for the assessment part because assessment is
Okay.
another chapter for implementation. Okay, so this part was only for learning, teaching, design, a guideline for that,
Oh.
and the last part of my discussion is assessment, a guideline only. Details I cannot, but a
Oh.
guideline will be discussed there. Okay,
Thank you.
right?
Thank you.
Okay, thank
Oh.
you. Any other? Any other question? No question then? Yes.
I hope there is no questions from the participants.
Okay.
Okay. Participants, please note, we can have a break now for 15 minutes and we can rejoin by 2:30.
2:30. Yes. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm again muting myself. Okay. And I'll open it at that time, 2:30. Right?
Okay. Okay. Very good. Very good.
Thank you. Or interpreted by the teacher, then what is written in the curriculum will not be reflected properly, effectively, and then it can be a negative things can also be there, right? So that's why whoever is preparing curriculum on behalf of you, your responsibility should be you should have a kind of workshop, and there the faculty members must very clear about what is written and why it is written and how to be implemented. Okay, this is very essential. And then after implementation, learning will be there, and learning to be, I told that evidences to be created. Evidences means why? Evidence is not for pen and paper evidence. It is the evidence that your satisfaction. Yes, I have worked, I have done something for my learners, and then now see the learners are able to do. This satisfaction only you need to create the evidences. Unless you do it, evidences will not be there. So it is not for the sake of creating evidence that you are doing. You are doing, that's why evidence will be the outcome of that. Okay, take it in that way. Because we have seen that most of the cases, we, the faculty members, are feeling like so many paperwork we have to do. And then where is the time to teach? We are actually engaged in creating so many elements. Yes, so we have to record it. That recording is essential. But it is that first you do and then you record. Then recording will be one time, it will like that. Yes, I'm preparing a kind of planning, which will take once. First time is very difficult because making a plan, then implementing a plan, then observing whether my plan is very well done or gaps are there, modifying next time when I am implementing. But once it is experienced by you, you will be learning at what situation, how to means work or how to implement the plan. That experience will be there. But without doing, if you try to write down only, then this will not improve your teaching as well as not improve in the learning ability of the students also, right? So the third component we'll be entering, that is the assessment. Now my question is assessment is a part of the learning process only? Can I include assessment within the learning process? 100%. This is not separated out from the learning. Assessment, you consider, is a part of learning. Okay, it's a part of learning. And see, this is the result of curriculum implementation. Learning targets are fixed, teaching done, learning results, learning completed when you assessed, and you got the feedback or you collect the feedback. So in the recording is done here on the basis of this feedback. Okay, so this is one process only, and this process is for implementation of the curriculum, right? So learning is not a separate thing, it is a part and parcel. Assessment is not a separate thing, it is a part and parcel of learning. So then what is the responsibility of the teacher? Teacher must be able to identify the reasons for corresponding learning of the student. Okay, why the student will be learning that? This reason must be very, very clear to the teacher himself. Unless teacher is not knowing the reason, then how he or she will be communicating it to the student? Because we need to communicate it to the student also. So before that, I must, as a teacher, must know why my student will be learning that. And then decide what to learn. That is the content of the learning by the teacher. Then accordingly plan and implement the learning activities, right? And finally test students to create evidences regarding learning. So this is the last part of that. Yes, in the previous session, one question was there regarding the formative assessment. Yes, assessment, I'll be talking of that. Assessment, what are the different types of assessment and why assessment and what is the function of assessment, each type of assessment. Okay, I'll be sharing with you here only. But remember, this is a very challenging task. Assessing student, deciding what kind of test you take so that you can keep evidences is very, very challenging. sometimes we don't feel like that because we prepare, we make question paper. But every item or question must be purposeful. We must ask a question keeping in mind that what is at the back, what outcome I want to check, so that I am asking. In the class, you must have observed that sometimes we ask, no, what do you mean by this? Or what do you know about that kind of thing? So sometimes this type of questions are not having any meaning, just we asked. Okay, so whenever we prepare question, we should think what I want, which part of the knowledge the student must show me that he is able to do. That's why I will be asking a question. That's why questions are always purposeful. Now, it is very important that what are the things we must assess? Number one, you see, what student know. That is the knowledge. You need to assess that. The next is what they can do and how well can do. That is the skill, performance. This is not only what they can do, how well. So there will be variation in the degree of performance, right? One can do just, one can do excellently. I have to identify that. Then third, I need to assess how they go about the task or doing their work. During the process when they are doing, how they are doing. Are they doing it very organized way? They have a plan to do. What is about their plan? Or they are just doing, I asked them to do, that's why they are doing. Okay, no organization, no planning, not no sharing of knowledge with the groups. They are just doing. Okay, I need to measure that also. Number four, how they feel about their work while doing. So yes, when I ask them to do, what is their expression? They take it like, okay, let us do it. They have the motivation and they put their effort to do that, or just you ask, so somehow they will be finishing the task. So all the things are needed to be assessed. It is not only the knowledge or laboratory performance, but also these two you can see is giving us in affective. Okay, so this is the knowledge domain, this is the skill domain, and this one is the affective domain, right? Fine. Challenges. Now, since these three domains you need to assess, it's no doubt it is challenging, right? Another challenge is there, that is the way we assess. What we assess? We assess students' learning. How we assess? Do we always assess after teaching? Is it always that I teach something and after that I should assess? Or I can assess in between also. Or I, as a teacher, will not at all assess. Somebody else I'll be giving that offer. Okay, on behalf of me, you assess. So there are different way of assessing. Okay, now see that for a teacher, a curriculum is there, and in the curriculum, course outcomes are there. So curriculum is also handling, if it is an outcome-based curriculum, it will handle all those. That is, ILOs will be there, teaching activities will be there, how to assess will be there. Otherwise, the teacher has to do all those things. But this alignment must be there. This is from the teacher's perspective. Now the same thing student is also looking at. Okay, but their perspective is in a different way because they are student, they are not the teacher. So what they will be doing, they from the curriculum getting the outcomes, and they are directly thinking of the assessment. In between they are not there, so they are thinking of the assessment because these are the CO that will be assessed. Then they are interested about the learning activities because these learning activities will make these enabling outcomes of this curriculum to exceed outcomes. So for them, this is very, very important. This they are getting directly and they need to give this one. So for them, this is very, very important. For you, the process is this. So this teaching activity and constructing of ILO is very important for preparing these learning activities. Okay. So then the teaching activities of the teacher and the learning activities of the learner are both directed towards the same goal, because this also going for exit outcomes. Teacher also like that through assessment he or she should confirm or ensure, yes, the exit outcome of the students. All right. So we should have constructive alignment between the assessment and the learning outcomes, right? If this is aligned, then this has to be aligned, right? Now see, as I told that, yes, assessment, is it only after teaching, after your whatever you planned delivering the thing, then only you will be assessing? Yes, sometimes it is assessment of learning, which we call. And this is nothing but the teacher assessment, when teacher is assessing. So assessment of learning is done by the teacher, or we call that assessment as teacher assessment. But sometimes it is assessment is there for learning, purposefully it is, the task is given so that you can learn through assessment. Okay, so this is normally done not by single person but by peer person. So that's why this is sorry. Okay, yes, this is peer assessment, right? And the third assessment is, yes, I have given a task, I have given the student a criteria sheet also, which is guiding how to check your own assignment. So when I am doing the assignment, in every step, the guideline is given how to assess whether you are going it in the correct direction or not. I am checking it. As a learner, I am checking my own work. So that is called assessment as learning, and that leads to self-assessment. So assessment can be of teacher assessment, can be of peer assessment, can be of assessment. Now you note that OBE demands these two more, that is, self-empowerment should be there. That's why self-directed learning to be the ability of our student, and learning to be assessed by themselves or by their peer team. That's why it demands that, yes, more of assessment for learning, that is peer assessment, and assessment as learning, that is self-assessment. Okay, but in our system you can just verify it is all the time assessment of learning, that is by the teacher itself or himself. Okay, and students are not many cases not involved in the assessment process. Okay, so this is what. So that's why when I told that yes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes can be there for, suppose it is a talk given by the student, give the criteria sheet for to rest of the students and ask them as per criteria what is their opinion about the performance of the particular student who is giving the talk. Collect that sheet. Okay, and then that will be assessment for learning, and ask those students, those who are marking in the sheet, that give feedback to him or her, that what you have written. Okay, share it with the person, then person will be understanding which part he has done very well and where he can improve, right? So these are the things to be integrated in the process of outcome-based education. Now, at this point, I'm using two words. One is assessment, another is evaluation. There is difference between these two. I just can tell you, assessment is always done for the benefit of the student. Okay, it gives a scope for improvement. That's why assessment is not only at the end, it is a continuous process throughout the period, right? And always give feedback. Always give feedback. Try to give the feedback in a positive way, not in a negative way, so that the learner can improve, can find out where is the gap and can improve. Okay? Assessment meaning is to sit with the student for the benefit of student. That means if needed, I'll be sitting with you to show you where is the gap so that you can improve, right? But evaluation, it is done at the end. Okay, it is done at the end, and that's why after evaluation, there is no scope for improvement for that particular period, right? Then it is the ultimate one, that it gives either pass or fail or whatever. So this is the that's why it is called evaluation is done to the student, and assessment is sitting with the student for the benefit of student. So there is the difference. But remember, either assessment or evaluation, both of these are not quantitative. That is, it is not, we don't consider it to be quantitative. It is always qualitative. Assessment for improving the quality of learning, and evaluation, it is then identify the quality. Okay, that is at the end. What is the quality? One is for improvement, another is to give the final judgment on the quality. That is the difference. Now, as you raised the question, so I will be answering another point here. You can note that assessment is normally, we talk about two types. One is formative, another is summative. Now, there are two more types also I'll be including. One is called baseline assessment, which we do when new student coming to, or in a new class I am going. I need to know my students. Okay, I need to know where is the gap, what are the things they can do, and what are the things they need something more when they are arriving at my institute or my class. So this assessment is done, not giving any marks or nothing, but I test to know them. That's why it is called baseline. If I found my student, a group of students are having problem in medium of instruction, a group of students are very weak in mathematics, but I am teaching electrical, so mathematics must be known. So if I can identify, I have to arrange something, some special thing for them, right? Extra thing for them. So that assessment is called baseline assessment. But above that also, there can be some student, those can have some learning difficulty or can have a problem, eye problem or some problem, they are sitting back and not able to see the board. So I have to go for that also, that assessment. That is called diagnostic assessment. So to diagnose the learner's special requirement, right? And then comes the formative one. Formative, as the name suggests, it is for formation of learning. So that's why all our classroom assessment are formative. The class test, etc. are also surprise test. Whatever you teacher made test you take within the semester, these are all formative. Okay, quiz, brainstorming, if you can arrange in your classroom and if you can give marks and can be added to their internal assessment, that's also formative assessment, right? And then summative assessment is also there, just like your project. You have a project at the final semester or maybe previous to final semester. So how we assess? We need to assess it throughout the semester. So not in a last one assessment, but it should be intervally distributed assessment process. Review times. First review can be based on the literature survey and decision about the problem. Second, how far they have gone. Likewise, you can have intermittent review, and every time you are assessing them. So final assessment will be done based on all these four taken into consideration. That's why that kind of assessment is called summative assessment. So do not consider the evaluation and summative assessments as same. But sometimes this summative assessment is converted into a final evaluation, as it may be in the case of sometimes that this kind of project or seminar kind of thing. But this is called, whenever intermediate assessments are there and it is summed up finally to final credit to be given on that, then it is called like summative assessment. You can keep seminar, you can keep sometimes a visit and report writing, etc. also can be made summative. So these are the four different types of assessment, but evaluations are only two types. One is norm referenced evaluation, the other one is criterion referenced evaluation. Norm referenced evaluation means that is the conventional method which we had our time, that is given marks. Okay, no grading, nothing was there. Okay, pass mark was there. Then it is called honors marks are there, like that. Letters, we call I got letter. So that concept was the norm reference. And in norm reference, every learner is compared with the other learner. Okay, performance of one learner compared with other learner. That is, you got 97, I got 98. So I am I know better than you because I got 98. So that was the concept in norm reference. But literally we know that 1 mark is not having any difference. Okay, and that's why in case of nowadays we go for criterion referenced evaluation. But truly we are not implementing that criteria. So what we are doing, we are checking the answer script in norm reference, then converting that norm reference result into a criterion reference through our mathematics like CGPA calculations are there, through that we are doing. But now we are able to express that result, final result, in terms of grade or credit points, right? So this is our existing assessment evaluation system of the country. But you can note here that yes, outcome-based education preferred this formative assessment, continuous assessment, like to give more emphasis on formative assessment, not on evaluation, end-term evaluation. Another point you can consider that outcome-based education do not support this norm-referenced evaluation. It always prefer, or it is for this criterion referenced evaluation, not for norm referenced. Okay. Now the question is, dash are the tools for. So every time I have to check this, okay, assessment or evaluation. So for checking, testing is necessary. So that's why tests are the tools. So we need to test whether it is assessment or it is evaluation. Everywhere I need to test. Without test, I cannot say you are very good and you are not. Okay, I need to test it. So if I just go for the test, then I can tell you, yes, okay. So I can tell you, like, what are the types of test that we normally do. Now you can see the first type, which we almost all of us actually we do it, natural process, that is pen and paper test, right? The second test is observation and perception. So we do it, we observe and give it, like how you are performing. So that is observation, perception. Then another is personal communication. Yes, I to give seminar, presentation, viva, etc. I want to check that, test the personal communication. And then the performance, the skill. Normally in academic courses, these four are the types of test that we need to do, assess our students. Okay. Now, all of you know that is for pen and paper, which is the major type kind of test which we do. Okay, there we need to link the intended learning outcomes with the assessment or evaluation. Why? Alignment to be there, and I want to align my outcomes, teaching, learning, and assessment. And that's why this ILOs has to be aligned. So if I have noted down all my ILOs of my particular course, then I can select, okay, these are the very simple ILO. I'm not going to put it in the examination in term question paper. So this will be tested by classroom only. These are the ILO which may be asked in the interim also, and they need to practice. So let us put it in the class test. These are the ILO which I like to do, but it is very descriptive. So give them this ILO as assignment. So when the list of ILO is visible to me, as a teacher, I can decide this many will go for this many will go for that. Okay, so this is the work to be done by the teacher. And when you are doing this, we use one tool, which is a table. We call it Bloom's taxonomy table. This Bloom's taxonomy table is used to represent the ILO according to its knowledge domain and its cognitive process domain. Okay, so this is a Bloom's taxonomy table where we will be putting my ILOs. And with respect to this Bloom's taxonomy table, next task is to construct table of specification based on this taxonomy table. So this table of specification will be for all the ILOs, right? Now, this can be a part of curriculum itself. If you prepare an outcome-based curriculum, then this table will be a part of this curriculum, right? But if our curriculum is not outcome-based, then if you want to do it, the teacher has to do it. Okay, but both the cases it is possible to do. And always we need to prepare test item or questions, whether it is multiple type or MCQs, or it is a short question type, or it can be a descriptive extended response type, whatever type of item you go for asking, but every question must be meaningful. That means it has a link with any of the ILO which you have already listed, right? So these are the rules for assessment you can consider. These are the rules for assessment for linking the outcome with assessment. Okay, so step 1, construct Bloom's taxonomy table. Step 2, construct table of specification based on the Bloom's taxonomy table, and then construct a item based on according to the table of specification. Now, suppose some university is taking a kind of decision that is question will be designed from outside. The members of the institute will not prepare. Then it is mandatory that along with the papers, documents for making the question paper, this table of specification should also be given to the external paper setter, who will be able to know by observing the table of specification that what are the learning outcomes which is expected from the students, and accordingly the external person need to prepare the question. That's why this table of specification is called, the other name for that is the blueprint for examination. Blueprint for examination, just like your blueprint for your building or house. This is also a blueprint. That means once it is issued, then the others need to obey it. Okay, we cannot frame any question which is not guided in the table of specification or located in the table of specification. But please, table of specification is a question bank. This is not at all a question bank, because there will be no questions on learning outcomes, levels, and knowledge will be reflected in that, along with the number of questions, how many questions you can ask will be there, whether MCQs will be there or short answer type will be there, or extended response type will be there, or problem solving will be there. That will be indicated, along with what is the mark awarded to each of them, whether 1 mark for MCQ or 2 marks for MCQ, or problem with 5 marks, that will be indicated in the table of specification, right? But questions will be as prepared by the question paper setter. And if you do this, then you are basically ensuring the assessment of all learning outcomes. So if your course file containing this element means you are following everything. So your means this assurance will be complete then, okay? Because you are following the procedure as indicated for that alignment, okay? Constructive alignment. Now coming to the methods. Now we told that yes, for written test, that is pen and paper, you can have different type of questions. I told already, either MCQ or short answer type or extended response type, or sometimes restricted response types can also be there. But that is for pen and paper. Then what about the observation? Like when we observe someone is doing something, performances in the laboratory skill. So whether judging the procedure, sometimes we judge the process, how they are doing it. Sometimes in the like workshop, we go for the job. So the job given, we see, we don't see how you are doing. We see only the product. We measure the job also. Or sometimes it is a combination of both. That is product as well as process. Both are considered. And when we are observing it at that time, during the performance of the learner, I need to note it also. So it is at that time we need to record it. And according to that record, we are going to release the score, right? So for that, the tools used are checklist, rating scale, product scale, portfolio. Checklist, which is a 0-1 thing, whether he has done it or not done it. Now, sometimes this done it and not done it is not actual reflection of what the student can perform. Some cases it is okay, but not for all cases. So checklist is very valid for some of the cases, but not for all. Where the student is doing, but not doing very effective way, I need to mark that also. Okay. So we go for rating scale, where we used to give 5-point scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we have something written at the top like good, very good kind of thing. And that good, very good, we decide what are the components. When can I consider it to be good? When it is very good, right? Sometimes we write also that thing. Okay, if he has done this, then the grade is A. If he has done this, then it is A plus, kind of thing. We prepare a kind of judgment, okay, justification. Then coming to the third instrument, which is the product scale. Now, suppose I'm doing some activity. To do that activity, I have to do 1, 2, 3, 4 tasks. Okay, 4 tasks are involved in that activity. Now, all the tasks may not be equally important for the overall activity. Some tasks are very important, some are not. Okay, so what we do, which are more important, we give some weightage to them, and which are not so, we don't give weightage. So there is a factor inside the list, okay, rating scale introduced, which is some weightage. Weightage can be 1, weightage can be 2, weightage can go up to 4, 5 also. And then its weightage multiplied with rating will be the score for the student. Okay, and this is called the product scale. And the fourth element we have written, which is nowadays used in laboratory or in workshop. Okay, that is called portfolio. Portfolio, a kind of file the student should keep with themselves where he is keeping what are the feedbacks he's getting out of his own work. I'm getting some either certificate for doing something very good work, or you asked me to write a report. I have done so many mistakes. So as a teacher, you have commented me and asked me to rewrite. I have asked and you are now satisfied, giving a good remark on that. So I am keeping all the evidences of my own learning improvements. Okay, where I was rewarded, where I was given a scope to improve, all those evidences I am as student keeping. And this portfolio will be submitted at the final time when you are going to look at my improvement ability. And based on that, you are going to give me some score also, right? And that is called portfolio. So portfolios can be different types also. For academic institutes, we go for portfolio, which is kind of all-inclusive portfolio, maybe, or sometimes it is for a particular task portfolio, like just for workshop or just for seminars I have kept a portfolio, okay? Or it can be for the whole semester, for all items you are keeping a portfolio. But this can be done, and this portfolio is nothing but the evidence. When you are keeping a sample portfolio, a student are showing that to others, this itself is a kind of assessment evidence, okay? Because every time what they are entering into the portfolio is actually after your comment only. Your recommendation, your comments must be there. The last part of this assessment is, all of you know that we use rubric. Rubric is an assessment tool. We call it as an authentic assessment tool. And that is used in criterion referenced evaluations. And since outcome-based education demands criterion referenced, so rubrics are the essential part of assessment in outcome-based or under outcome-based education, right? So it is essential to prepare rubric. Now, rubric is a tool, I should say it is an assessment tool which converts quality data into quantitative data, okay? So it is very difficult to convert it. So rubric is a tool which will be doing it. So what do we do? Rubric has got 3 main sections. One section we keep at the criteria. The other section we write the level of performance. That level of performance can be fair, good, very good, excellent kind of thing, or not yet ready kind of thing, okay? Along with that, I should keep a score also, because the above line is qualitative. When I'm writing not yet ready or ready but not good kind of comments, this gives qualitative analysis. But along with that, for each quality, we are putting some number also. Say 1, 2, 3, 4, it can be 4-point scale or it can be 5-point scale. Okay. Now, those criteria are nothing but the outcomes. To do a task, what are the things the student to do? These will come as criteria. Okay, so there is criteria, there is score, there is that kind of levels of performance. The one thing is left, that is the descriptor. So in every time, if vertically I am putting the kind of criteria, horizontally I'm putting this score and level of performance, then for defining each criteria, the qualitative and quantitative value, I need to write something. When should I say that student taking the reading of an experimentation done very well or not done in a very haphazard way? So these are the comments I'm writing. So how will you keep an evidence of what you mean by done well, what you've done by in a haphazard way or chaotic way? So that you have to write. You have to write in a description. Okay, and that description is called a descriptor. So that's why this rubric is a three-dimensional assessment tool, which is having the criterion, having the score as well as level of performance, and have descriptor. And this tool is used for measuring or assessing students when they are engaged in all sorts of involvement activities like group discussion, role playing, then your quiz, okay, even drama, all presentation, seminar, everywhere where they are performing, their performance has to be measured, has to be assessed using rubric. So rubric we need to develop for criterion reference evaluation, right? So this is a very good and essential assessment tool for outcome-based education, okay, and for active learning, right? So I think these are the tools which we need to use in outcome-based education for assessment, and all these tools will generate evidence, and that is the evidence you need to keep for either your NBA assessment, or you can use those outcomes of these tools for improving your teaching as well as their learners' learning ability, right? So this is what I kept for in my plan. So we have some time left, and it's a good time to discuss also. If you have any query, please come out and share. I may be able to give you answer or may not be also, but sharing is needed. Okay. Yes. So now it is for you.
Participants, if you have any queries, please, you can unmute your mic. You can ask the questions.
Namaste, madam.
Okay. One question I'm getting. Are you writing
Namaste,
that
madam.
concept? Namaskar. Yes. Namaste.
Ma'am, I'd like to ask you the question related to the categorization of laboratories. Recently, we have used the categorization of core labs, computing labs, and manufacturing labs. So, ma'am,
Okay.
can you guide us, please, the exact meaning of this category?
No, this category can be in the level of performance, based on the performance. What are the things you told? One is core labs. Then
Yes, ma'am. Computing labs.
One is the basic laboratories is there. Then the
Okay.
computing, because computing is asking for what? No, cognitive skills. So there
Okay.
you are going to measure the cognitive skill. Okay. So
Okay. Yes.
that computing laboratories are for that. And the third you told what? The machine
Manufacturing.
oriented. Yes, manufacturing, product oriented. So I
Yes,
told
product.
that yes. Then you have to measure that. I told that measurement is means performance is measured on basis of sometimes process, sometimes product, sometimes it is a combination, and sometimes
Okay.
solely on cognitive skill. So on that basis is that this classification or categorization, I think. Okay.
Okay, okay. So, madam, just I have made the categorization. For example, PCB lab belongs to the electronics department. That will come under the manufacturing lab. So,
Because
am
they
I
are,
right, ma'am?
yes, they are going to prepare that, no? They
Yes,
will be preparing
PCBs.
the circuits
Yes,
for designing circuits under that PCB lab, I think.
yes, ma'am.
So, yes,
Okay.
yes. Mm.
And I'm little bit facing the difficulty to categorize the labs belongs to the computer department. Because how we can make the categorization, because all we are maybe we are assuming all these are the computing labs.
But there can be some hardware labs also. So not,
Okay,
there
okay.
also they have some hardware labs. Okay, all are not
Okay.
cognitive ability. Some are also programming skills are also needed. They
Right.
have to prepare some, maybe your electronics department and this computer department can have some common areas also, no?
Yes, yes, ma'am, certainly.
Hmm.
Where the hardware things, the small projects or the major projects they are performing.
Exactly,
Yes,
exactly,
ma'am.
exactly.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Welcome. So another question here is written, that is elaborate the term concept learning, or it is not concept learning. Learning concept knowledge is there. The other term you are writing concept mapping. Concept map is a technique. Is a technique for that is, suppose I want to know that yes, how much you know about the process of, say, very simple process of photosynthesis. So I have given some keywords haphazardly, which are all terms related to photosynthesis. I have asked my student that I have given these terms, 10 terms given to you. You find out that is these terms are related, and then you place them accordingly, the relationship, and connect them by an arrow and write on the arrow what is the relationship between these two terms. And with that, you find out whether you can establish some concept or not. Okay? So when they will be trying, they will be getting, say, the word like leaf, root, water, those kind of sunlight kind of things will be there. So once they started doing, then they will be able to, because they should be involved in the process. Their minds should be on, as I told. So what they, once doing this, it will be visible to them that yes, there is some concept of this. Okay, photosynthesis is coming. So they will be organizing the diagram in such a way that if you read out that diagram, you will be getting the process of photosynthesis. So this tool is a very good engagement tool for the learners, as well as it will keep their minds on, their analytical skill will be explored, and then again you can assess their understanding about any topic or something which you have either taught or not taught, but you want to know whether they know it or not, right? That is called concept mapping. So, any other question? So I think it's over. And then, yes, Dr. Manoj, is it done?
Yes, ma'am.
I think.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay.
So,
Sir,
madam,
actually, I would like to thanks to madam also. She has conducted excellent session, sir. Excellent session.
Okay.
Thanks, ma'am. Thanks a lot.
exactly,
Thank you.
exactly.
Thank you. So we can
Madam?
close the session. Yes, please.
Your session was highly informative. The step-by-step procedure for designing a program, the systematic procedure for the development of curriculum, analysis of PO and PEOs for knowledge, skill, and attitude, and deciding learning outcomes in a structured way, which you have covered in the morning session. Also, the
Yes.
teaching learning process, transforming passive classroom to active classrooms, assessment tools and rubrics, which you have covered in the afternoon session, was excellent, highly fruitful, which give us a lot of clarity in curriculum development and implementation. So, madam, in spite of your busy schedule, you have been kind enough to share your knowledge with us. On behalf of the Rajagiri School of Engineering and Technology and all the participants present here, I express my sincere gratitude. Thank you very much, madam.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I also enjoyed the session, your questions, and so if we can do it in contact mode, it gives more enjoyment. But okay.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
Okay.
So thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much, madam.
Okay.
Participants, please note, on Monday, Dr. Guru Prasad will be taking the class. The session will be starting at 10 a.m., sharp 10 a.m. in the morning on Monday. So thank you all.